What is up, everyone? Welcome to another episode of the Black Rabbit Collective, Jackson County's home for news, politics, culture, all things Jackson County for regular people, normal folks. Today, we're having our follow-up episode, second episode of the Jackson County Commissioners Candidate Series. I have an exciting one for y'all today. I'm going to bring him up to the stage, Mr. Jon Brown. What up, Jon?
Hey, Steve, man, good to be here with you. Thanks for having me on.
I'm very excited to have you. I'm very excited to get to know you. We have kind of worked side by side a couple times in a semi-formal professional setting, but I've never really had a chance to like pick your brain. So I'm stoked to do that. I do want to say you're running to be the GOP candidate for the Jackson County chair for the upcoming primary election that's taking place March 3rd. Early voting is open right now. If Jon Brown hits your heart, you could run down to the ballot and to the Board of Elections and vote for him today if you so choose to. But I want to start off with you by thanking you for accepting my invitation. I kind of like threw all this together out of a desire to get to know the candidates. Over the years, I watch every county commissioners meeting. I read the newspaper every week, but I still feel like I didn't know who the people were. I didn't know necessarily who I was voting for. I'm an unaffiliated voter. So when I go to the primary on March 3rd, they're going to ask me what ballot do I want. Jackson County, the state of North Carolina. I mean, I think you'll admit it's won and lost by the unaffiliated voter. And so in making those decisions, I felt like I wanted to get to know each individual on a little bit more of a personal level than what I can read in the Smoky Mountain News. And so I had the chance of running into you back in December, right after you filed to run for this position. And the very first thing that you said to me when I asked you about it was that you shared a little bit of your vision for uniting the county, for unity, for like overcoming some of the divisiveness that's happened over the last couple years.
For
And
sure.
you know, when you're talking to political candidates, I'll be honest with you. My first thought was, yeah, I've heard that before, right? You know, and so it's like, how do we do that? And for you to accept my invitation and, you know, quite honestly, be the only GOP county commissioner candidate to accept my invitations. I want to tell you, thank you. So you're showing me that you are, willing to approach those things that you originally told me back in December. So thank you for that. I don't know if you have anything you want to share on just kind of like that unity message. Because it touched me. It touched me. Your actions have touched me. So thank you.
Yeah. Yeah. And thank you, Steve. And again, thank you for having me. And, I want to take every opportunity to get the word out and share my message, give a little bit of a picture into who I am as a person, as a leader, what I could offer the community. Jackson County, I think in a lot of ways right now is in need of a leader who's willing to come work with everybody, work for everybody. Um, you probably haven't noticed this, but our county seems to be a little divided in some things lately. Um, and that's heartbreaking to me. I love our community. Born and raised here, and I don't want to get off into all that stuff you may ask me about, but um, to see our society in a lot of ways, and it's on a national level and it's on a local level. In a lot of ways, we are more divided than we've ever been, and so my hope, my heart in stepping forward to lead has been to one of the biggest things in my goals as far as being a leader is to come in and bring unity and to you know really mend relationships in the community, because when we're divided we are so much weaker, and we cannot get things done. And you look and see what's happening it always is happening in Congress. But when we are not on the same page, we end up fighting over a few small things, and we end up not solving big problems, problems that affect everybody. So my goal on the town board as a commissioner was to do that, and I think I did a good job of that. I think I brought people together, and maybe we didn't all see eye to eye completely, but we were able to get some things done. And and so that's really a big part of what my heart is towards approaching this position, is to not just be in this leadership position and kind of get my way, but to come to the table with people maybe I don't see totally eye to eye uh, with things on, and come to a place where we can work together and we can solve problems. There's a lot of big problems that we're facing and challenges and all that, and I want to see us come together as a community and tackle those, and make Jackson County a better place to live. It's already a great place to live. Let's make it even better. So yeah, I want to be open to talking to anyone anytime. I'm going to a little Q&A thing at the library after this. The Republican Party's doing, and but I'm willing to talk to anybody and really listen. I think one thing that's irritated me with a lot of public servants and politicians is that they want to sit there and tell you all these great things they want to do, or be kind of a pawn in a political party and say, I'm going to stand for this and stand for that, and they're not willing to listen and say, what do you, the people, need? What do you want? What, and we have, what is it, 45,000 people in this county. The leaders have 45,000 bosses. They're in charge. The people are the people, who are in charge, and they elect a few people to help lead and do what they want done. So, yeah, that's just a little bit of, yeah, I am very excited about this, and I hope for the opportunity to serve and serve everybody, not just half the people or a party.
I commend you for the willingness to be able to want to have those conversations. So much of all of those issues just breaks down to like healthy communication and how we communicate with each other. And when like these divisive issues come up, not instantly get defensive and like try to defend your stance, but
Mhm.
like you mentioned, being willing to hear the other person out. There's always a compromise. We have so much more in common than we do apart. Everybody
Yeah.
that can hear my voice cares about this county. Everybody that can hear my voice cares about the people of this county, the natural beauty and just everything that we have here, the culture and the beautiful people. We all want the same thing, and some folks, see different paths to that solution. And I think that that message of unity is what is needed. So I love it, man. I think that, in my opinion, I grew up playing sports, playing baseball and basketball, and just like really admiring my coaches. I had a couple of coaches that I just like to this day, from like 30 years ago, would just run through a brick wall if they asked me to. Um, and so I guess like I think that athletes and former athletes potentially make good leaders. You often see them getting into like coaching roles and things like that. And the reason is because of like the discipline that you're taught at an early age, the standards for excellence, the teamwork, and some of that like unity that you were just talking about, like working together as a unit to achieve a collective goal. You were an athlete. You grew up an athlete. You played ball probably most of your life, right? Um,
Yep.
my favorite coach was uh, my 9 and 10 year old little league coach. And it was because of all the things that I just described, because of the standards that he set for us at such a young age. But he gave us all nicknames. We all had a nickname on the back of our jersey. So I want to know, what was your nickname?
Well, it kind of changed here and there. It became JB because I think, course, growing up, I was Jonathan, and then it got shortened to John in high school. And then for some reason on the soccer pitch, they felt it was easier to say JB instead of John, which doesn't make sense because it's two syllables and not one. But yeah, JB. And, I can't say that it was a Pele or a Maradona, anything like that. But I completely get what you're saying. And that is a big part of who I am, the just the background of sports, growing up playing sports, being around sports, coaching. I've done my share of coaching too. I had the privilege and the blessing of having a father who um, was one of my coaches, probably coached me more than anybody else, and he, is one of my heroes, and he's I couldn't ask for a better dad. My dad, Dolphus Brown, some of your listeners may know him. He's pretty active in the community. He coached for a long time. He's in the Jackson County Hall of Fame he was a soccer coach at Smoky Mountain High School. Um, Lots of wins, 300 some wins, and 20 some years of coaching high school soccer. And for him, that was an opportunity to pour into young men's lives and be a role model and see them to develop into solid young men. And so his passion, his heart was to be a good godly example, a good role model. A lot of these guys come from broken homes or homes without a father figure. And so that was his ministry. And so he was one of my coaches, and I would say my best coach. And he pushed me and my twin brother and my younger brother. He was a huge influence in my life. And so growing up playing sports, yeah, you learn all those values of discipline, hard work. Um, I prided myself on showing up every fall in soccer and then in basketball as being the most fit player on the team. That was always my goal. Even in college, my goal was to show up the most fit on the team, even though maybe I wasn't the most skilled. Of course, we had some guys from Brazil and other countries were pretty darn talented. But I could control how fit I came to preseason camp. And so yeah, those lessons of hard work, just working my tail off every day. And then you win some and lose some, but you learn from the losses. And one of my favorite quotes growing up was I had on my wall was Larry Bird. He was my childhood hero, because I loved how hard he worked, and he dove for the loose balls, and there was a picture of him diving for the loose ball, and it said, I I I found out what my weaknesses were, and I worked my tail off every day to develop those weaknesses into strengths. And that was on my wall for years and years. And I liked that because I think in sports, you become aware of what you're good at and what you're not good at, and you can work on those things to improve yourself. And so playing in youth sports, high school sports, played basketball, soccer in college, kind of all those lessons of hard work, commitment, teamwork, really shaped me into who I am now. And I feel like now I can lead with a lot of those skills that I learned and kind of developed through playing, a college sport, and then getting into endurance sports, marathon running and Ironman triathlon, and continuing to learn discipline and that's just served me very well. I still get up at 4 a.m. I work on my body, I work out, I watch what I eat and things like that. And so I think that's just been a lot of good lessons for me to keep me disciplined and focused. So I'm grateful for that. Sports are great for kids and through the whole lifespan too.
Yeah. You totally squirreled me with Larry Bird. What a legend. One of my current favorite hobbies is to go on YouTube and look at videos of the current generation, like kids, like people your children's age, and they watch highlight reels of Larry Bird just in complete shock of what the things that he did.
Yeah,
It's wild to see
that's
them
right.
watch Larry Bird for the very first time. I would highly recommend getting on YouTube and watching young people watch Larry Bird for the very first time. It is wild. There's a whole genre of it on YouTube. Wild.
Yeah, that's right.
Um, who were some of your other role models as children? You mentioned your father, and you mentioned some of the qualities that you observed in him. Was there anybody else, even directly or even indirectly, like somebody that you just like admired and really like bought into, say, their philosophy of life?
Yeah, a whole list of people. I have, growing up I was very blessed to be in a solid community, a church community. And so there were several other godly men in my life who were just the solid example of, faithful husband, father, hard workers, contributors to the community. So there were some close friends in our church setting who were big role models in my life. And so, kind of on that local level, some of those men are still around, some have passed on. And so, in addition to my father, and I got to mention my mother too. She passed away about a year ago, and we missed her terribly. But my mother was a huge, huge influence in my life. Um, Men in my church, like, there's a man who is still in my church to this day, Rick Harper. He's an attorney in town in Silva, and just a godly man, a good friend of my parents and myself. And I could list a lot of names, but there's men like that who have really poured into me. I've had just the blessing of having some mentors in my life who have been there, and always, willing to meet up for lunch, grab a cup of coffee, and let me kind of pick their brain on things. Um, on a kind of a broader level, I've got role models ranging from, you know, public servant leaders who we have had, in our state on a local level. One role model I've had has been, who was, I believe did a lot for our part of the state, was Charles Taylor. Yeah, he was a Republican, but I felt like he was a statesman. Statesmen are not, what we think of politicians. In my mind, he was a man who served all the people, and he really looked out for everybody, regardless of who you vote for. Um, I think about more locally, even Charles Elders, a man who, just recently passed, and they named the highway after him. Another statesman, someone who served everybody and brought unity. And um, and so those guys, I could list a whole bunch of others. Uh, Number one, I'd say first and foremost, my Savior Jesus. Not to get super down into the, religious, but kind of rabbit hole with, but as far as, who has been most influential in my life has been God and my faith in Christ, and so my walk with Him. That's been the biggest thing. So the Word of God, the Bible has been my biggest influence. If you're looking for what's influenced and shaped me, I'd say the Bible and my faith in God. Um, and and so um, other influences. I had a great college soccer coach. His name's John Garvilla, and he was a fiery, hot-tempered Italian New Yorker who pushed me and pushed me. He he had a short fuse, but he demanded excellence. And you play a ball that's not right, or you half butt jog off the field, or if you're not stretched out, warmed up, dressed out at 15 minutes before practice, then you're late, kind of thing. He instilled in me, that just discipline and hard work, um, so a lot of good teachers over the years. It'd be tough to start listing those because I've had a lot of those. But I think, the biggest influences, my faith in God, and then, great parents. So grateful for that, and great coaches, teachers. Um, yeah, yeah.
Do you think that, like, with the modern times and the busyness of life and the distractions of social media and our phones in our pockets, that there's an opportunity for, say, us as the new, like, modern men to, like, fill a better role like our parents did in those role models? Like, do modern kids have the same people in their lives to look up to, or is just everybody so busy that there's not quite as many opportunities for, like, say, leaders to teach young people how to live a, healthy life, and carry all those values that, like, in people that me and you looked up to as kids? Is there an opportunity for the community to improve that?
There certainly is, and I think that you just mentioned some reasons why it's not happening a lot. We are a busy culture. You look at the way the family has kind of broken down, a lot of single parent homes and um, kids in the foster system and things like that. And so there's a need for men and women to step up and take that leadership role, and just getting involved and being there for kids, coaching, boys and girls club, whatever. I mean, getting involved in some of these things to lead and guide our young people. I know right now, like there's a crisis in our county. They're not going to have a middle school golf team, which I think is terrible. I was hoping my son could play. He was wanting to play, and they don't have a coach. And so I think that one thing I would hope to do, I would really want to do as a commissioner would be to um, promote those opportunities for adults to jump in there and serve our kids, coach teams, volunteer at the school, get more involved in what your child is doing in the school and in the lives of other children. There's a huge need for that. So I was blessed to have a great dad. I know that there are many kids who aren't blessed with that, and so yeah, and so there's such a need there, and so for instance, through our church does have opportunities for people to pour into kids' lives, and even though two of my kids now are out of the house, and my wife and I are trying to find ways to get involved and be there for our kids in our church too. But yeah, it's a huge need in our society, and Jackson County is no different. I know there's a big need for foster parents, and so I've seen the blessing of that in my life. I've seen my twin brother, his family just adopted a little girl, and I know we have other friends who are doing that, and so I would want to make that easier for people, make that more accessible, education to be more available on what it's like to be a foster parent, what it's like to adopt, and or just to get involved in clubs like the Boys and Girls Club and things like that. It's a huge need.
Yeah, for sure. You played soccer at WCU?
I played at Milligan University over in Johnson City, Tennessee.
Uh-huh.
Yep.
What was
Yep.
I want to talk a little bit about like the transition from going from like high school sports to college sports and what challenges you faced. Um Pardon me, and how, and then what did you do to like overcome them? How did you face them? Like you mentioned, like working the hardest, being the most fit, walking into camp in the beginning of the season, things like that. But what was the evolution like? What was that transformation like for you? I know it was just like a few years ago. It wasn't way back in the day, right? Just a couple years ago.
Yeah, just a couple years ago. I can't believe I graduated college. What is it now? 24 years ago. Um, and I try to get out and play, and it just doesn't quite work. I'm not quite as quick as I was. I get tired faster. I'm more sore. I pull muscles. But yeah, so I love playing college soccer. My twin brother and I were recruited by a few schools. We visited a few schools in the area, Mars Hill and Montreat and Appalachian State, and ended up landing on Milligan. We really liked the coach there because he was doing a traveling camp. He would go around the country doing camps, and he actually did one in Jackson County for a few years. So he started recruiting my twin brother and I. Um, and so yeah, you go from being kind of the star. I was all conference, all Western North Carolina, and all region, and scored lots of goals, 25 goals I think I had my senior years. And then you go to being on a college team, and you're just kind of one of the guys. You got to learn this new role of, I go from being an attacking center mid to scoring goals and things, to kind of playing on the wing and supporting the guys who were more gifted at that. And so I think that, yeah, it was just a lot of really identifying the things that I needed to do to be a valuable part of the team, and the things that I could control were, my fitness, working hard on being trying to be the most fit player on the field. Maybe I didn't have all the skill that some of those other guys had, but I could be fit and I could run up and down the wing all game long, and contribute like that. And I ended up having a good career. I think my sophomore year was the best. I had like 8 goals, I think. But junior year, I had a surgery that kind of set me back, and I think my senior year, I was kind of ready to be done. But I had an amazing career doing that, and got to travel a lot, got to meet a lot of people, played with a lot of nationalities, guys from England and Wales and Portugal, Saudi Arabia, Trinidad, Jamaica, Brazil. I mean, Africa. So got to learn a lot of culture, and learning their languages, and yeah, and going and hanging out with the Kenyans. One day they invite us to their apartment for a barbecue. We go behind the building, and they're rotisserieing a goat that they had slaughtered that morning. And so getting to kind of be around these different cultures, and see how the different styles of play, and realizing that the Brazilians and the English guys, it's going to be difficult because of the different styles of play, and so learning how to, my role there was too was unity. It was I was a leader on the team, and I tried to bring guys together, and different styles of play, and bridge those communication gaps and things like that. So um, it was a great experience. So glad I got to have that experience. It is like a job playing a college sport, and there's times when you wonder why am I putting myself through this? But in a lot of ways, it kept me accountable in a lot of ways. We had study hall. We had to make sure our grades were good to stay on the team. We had curfews. We couldn't be out going out doing crazy stuff. We had to be ready for that game on Saturday, and so that accountability, that being pushed, keeping your body fit. It's done well for me to keep me disciplined, keep me focused in my life. Now serving in a leadership role in the hospital, as in the rehab services, um, you know, solving problems, helping staff develop and overcome their challenges. And I think just a lot of that just goes back to being in a very competitive environment on a college team. And and it helped me to learn time management too, and how to spend my time and energy. I actually did better in school when I was busy with soccer season, because it kept me more focused. Um, and figuring out how to study for that exam on a 6-hour bus ride back to school after a game, and things like that. So yeah, just a lot of good lessons there, and glad I had that opportunity. Very grateful.
Yeah, you like go your whole life from like being the man, everyone telling you you're the man, and then now you're like at the college level, just kind of on the team. Humbling, a little
Yep,
humbling.
it is
Um,
very humbling.
how did you evolve to get to the point where you decided that what you wanted to do professionally? Like, at what point in your collegiate career, young person career, and life did you know that that was something? How did you figure out what you wanted to do? Because as a young person, when I was a young person, that was one of my biggest like fears. Was just like the whole process was overwhelming, and so I just like retreated. Like I just like waited it out until I got a little more mature. But so how did you like land on that career choice?
Yeah, good question. I went to school because I was getting the college soccer scholarship, and I was excited to play soccer. And so it was like, well, we'll figure the whole academic thing out. And so at Milligan, they had a very challenging humanities program. They say Harvard modeled their humanities program after Milligan. I don't know if that's true or not, but it was a tough program. And so the first couple of years, you're kind of just doing all that general ed stuff, the humanities, and a liberal arts college, reading a lot and studying, and grinding it out. And I just prayed a lot about what God wanted me to do with my life, because I really didn't have a clue. Um, and so during college, I felt like God was pushing me to go into serving in ministry. And so I actually studied youth ministry, youth and family ministries, and then I minored in fitness and wellness, human performance and exercise science. So I studied those kind of together. Um, and I ended up working in a retreat center for a while, kind of challenging young people in their faith, and in their and then outdoor adventure and things like that, backpacking trips and paddling and orienteering and this and that. And then also getting into serving for with a couple churches. I actually served with First Methodist Church for a few years in Silva. Um, Before I went back to grad school. So, and during that time, I was doing some personal training, and working with people, because I was very big into fitness. Um, and so, um, so I would say, it was prayer. It was talking to people who knew me well, and I think I would guide young people um, to do a lot of thinking and just talking to people that you know well, who know you well, and because other people can spot your strengths, they can see the things that you have that you could offer, and so that was helpful for me, for people to speak into my life. And then as I worked for a while at the church, and I did some different things like personal training. I I was, I knew that that was for a season, and I didn't see myself staying in that for a real long time. And then I started getting really interested in helping people overcome uh, physical challenges. And so so kind of doing the personal training thing, there were some folks I couldn't really help, and that frustrated me. Or they had certain conditions, and I wanted to be able to work with them safely and help them progress. But there were things that I just didn't have that knowledge to help them. So I started researching physical therapy, and it was just like the perfect fit for me. And the more I researched it, talking to people, I got to shadow some therapists around here, and then so I decided to go back to grad school in my late 20s, um, and I spoke with the director, the department head at Western. Of course, they were a master's program at the time, and most programs in the country were a doctoral program. And I said, well, I think I want to go ahead and get my doctorate degree if I'm going to do this. So I got into a program in New Hampshire, and so Franklin Pierce University. I got into that, the only program I applied to, and I believe God, He made a way for that. And my college GPA wasn't great. A lot of programs, you got to have a 4.0, you got to, and plus lots of other things on your resume. And thankfully they gave me a chance. I didn't have a 4.0 coming out of college. So, but I got in. I worked my tail off, and I got involved in the American Physical Therapy Association. I ended up getting an award. They only give like four students a year out of like 27,000 PT students. They presented that to me in Tampa my third year. Very prestigious award. And so I just got really involved in learning about the profession. On the state level, I was the kind of the student representative on the state board, and then I got involved in the national level. I got slated actually to run for the National Student Conclave president. Didn't win the election, but it was an honor to be there and give a speech in front of 1,000 PT students and do all that. So PT school, yeah, I loved it. I jumped in head first. And so leadership has really always been something I've gravitated towards. I was, class president, Smoky Mountain High School. I was and just tried to be there for everybody. I was voted best all around, whatever superlatives are, and then got very involved in graduate school too, in leadership, and college and graduate school. And so just the uh, you know healthcare field for me, it felt like the right fit. I again, I've always enjoyed helping people. I've enjoyed leading, and healthcare felt like a great place to be able to make a difference that was meaningful, not just kind of chasing a paycheck. In physical therapy, I get to see people improve and overcome terrible injuries. I've worked with people with multiple trauma, strokes, traumatic brain injury, spinal cord injury, coming out of surgeries, various orthopedic surgeries, and sports injuries, overuse injuries, weekend warrior type stuff, and your high school athletes. And I'm working with several folks right now who've getting over ACL reconstruction, and it's very gratifying for me, being a critical part of their recovery and them getting back on the field or back in the workforce, or back to just functioning. And so um, I've just enjoyed that field, and now I'm serving in a leadership role, overseeing our ancillary clinics with the Cherokee Hospital. We just opened a new clinic in Murphy, expanding out and helping to kind of grow what we're doing in the rehab services. I've just feels like a good fit for me right now. So yeah, very grateful to be kind of where I'm at with that. And a lot of good lessons I've learned being in leadership in healthcare. I was rehab manager with Mission Health over at Angel Medical Center for a few years. Um, and got to really see, the side of kind of that. Unfortunately, it's become kind of that corporate side of healthcare, and kind of learning how to manage people, make make the clinic and the rehab department make it profitable, and at the same time keep that caring touch and that compassionate service that you want it to be, where you're really helping people. And so thankfully I've landed in a place with the Cherokee Indian Hospital where it's just a great environment for that. It's a place where we have good resources, and it's a big family, and we can take care of people really well there, and just really enjoy what I do, thankfully.
I see some wonderful parallels between your physical therapy work and county chair, local government, and that is patience, right? You can't rush through or speed up the healing process. A lot of
That's right.
people in the community have felt over like the last year or two that the commissioners have rushed a lot of stuff through. And we don't have to like get into the details of that, but instead of like pausing for a moment and actually assessing the situation, they've pushed things to vote or they've done things, taken action in various ways that felt expedited, if you will. But I see
Sure.
some parallels in
Yeah.
the patience in what you've done in your professional career of physical therapy to achieve the goal of healing, but doing it at the natural pace. Care to share anything about that?
Yeah, you're absolutely right. There's a lot of parallels there with how the good Lord designed our bodies to heal. I'm always telling people, slow down, take a step back. It takes time. I tell people, there's a study done a while back that showed, a muscle will start to atrophy or shrink after 2 hours of inactivity. And then unfortunately, you don't gain the strength back that quickly. It could take 6 weeks or more to have noticeable strength gains. And so I'm always kind of coaching people. Let's be patient. Let's take this a day, a week at a time, and kind of temper our expectations. Um, the yeah, the healing process. I think there's some big parallels there, with kind of how things should be happening on kind of that macro, that community level. We sometimes jump into decisions. There were some things that I did as a town commissioner in Silva that, I was the one on the board who kind of said, let's pump the brakes on that. We need to table that and have more conversation about that. There were some ordinances that were kind of, I felt like they were kind of being, pushed through quickly. And I didn't feel like that was healthy. I didn't think they were very well vetted and or discussed. Just because maybe another municipality is kind of pushing that through and passing that quickly doesn't mean that I didn't feel like it meant we should do that. So um, that's approach I take to leadership, and something I really learned to do on the municipal level was to let things stew a little. Not everything needs to be decided very quickly. Okay, sometimes you have to push things through. You got to figure it out and move on. But a lot of things, we do need to thoroughly discuss them and say, hey, what are the ramifications of this? And how can we make, maybe if it's a divisive thing, how can we make both sides more comfortable and happy with the outcome? And so I have prided myself really on bringing people together to come to the table and have those conversations, and try to find a win-win for everybody. Because I don't feel like that's done a lot. I don't feel like a lot of leaders take the time to try and do that. I feel like some leaders want to just kind of, well, this is where I stand, and come hell or high water, this is the way it's going to be, and this is how I'm going to vote. And I've taken the approach of, well, I would like to learn a little more, maybe on the other side of what I'm here, and this is kind of what I'm thinking, but I'd like to hear your view on this, and maybe I've got it wrong, or maybe I've not got it totally right, and we could go forward with a better solution that we're both happy about. And then also taking time to talk to, you know, attorneys. Honestly, I've learned a lot, you know, popping in on the town attorney's office and saying, hey, could I have half an hour of your time to hear the background and the, the history of, what happened here in this town over this issue, and taking time to do my homework and listen to people with like that has helped, I think, helped us avoid some bad decisions, or maybe coming up with a better solution on some things. So yeah, I just, yeah, my heart is really to work together with people, to know all the information, all the angles. I've learned to respond to people when they come to me and say, hey, I need you to help me with this, or hey, I want you to vote with me on this. I've learned to say, I can't commit to that yet. I got to think about it. I need to do a little homework. Thank you for that. Let's talk some more, instead of saying, yeah, man, I'm with you. And then maybe a few days later, a week or two later, realize, I should have maybe taken a little time on that, chewed on it, and prayed over it and all that. So you live and learn. But I think I've grown a lot in that way. So I think I can bring that to the county commission.
Yeah. So much of it, whether it's like up at the county or town level, like you are just as individuals, just boils down to like healthy communication and how we approach uncomfortable conversations. Nobody enjoys uncomfortable conversations, but in this life, they are unavoidable. So, how does Jon Brown approach difficult conversations? And then how do you like adapt your communication styles depending on who it is that you're interacting with? Because people respond differently. Each individual is going to respond differently. That's something that I'm constantly reflecting on in my leadership styles, is like, how do I navigate and how do I adapt my communication based off of the individual and their needs? How does Jon Brown do it?
Absolutely. I think the goal for me is to approach it with grace, and to say, I want to come, I want to hear, I want to really know and hear exactly where you're coming from. And that takes, sometimes being very humble, and slowing down and saying, um, you know, help me understand. I want to, I think I have my opinion on this, but I may not be right, or I may not have it completely right. And so being open to having those conversations, one thing that I would love to see people do better with, and some people will, a lot of us, and we're all, I think all of us are guilty of this. I think we could all improve, but we all get in our mind where we stand on something, and I think, to disagree is normal. We're never gonna not not disagree ever. I mean, we're always gonna have some element of not agreeing, but how do we communicate that? How do we talk to each other about it? And can we, um can my goal is to listen well, to value your opinion, and find a place where we land that we both feel pretty good about. Maybe we concede a little bit here and there on both sides, but I think approaching with a heart of humility, and being willing to extend some grace, and be able to say, you know what, in some cases, to say I had it wrong, and so, and then there's times when you say, you know what, I can't budge on this, because I believe this too strongly, but we can do that in a way that is respectful, and we give people that voice. And when commissioners, I'm not going to talk bad about any commissioner or opponent or anybody, but when leaders will push things through, or make decisions behind closed doors that don't, and people don't feel like they're heard, I think that's poor leadership. I think it causes people to be, disenfranchised with the whole process with government. It gives politicians and public servants a bad name, and I would love to change the narrative on that. I would love to be the guy that comes in, and people could say, you know what, maybe he doesn't totally agree with where I'm coming from or my position, but he's going to listen to me. He's willing to bend. He's willing to compromise. And people feel heard. And I think in our community, I think there's a lot of people right now who haven't felt heard, and I want to change that environment. I want everyone in our county to say, you know, I have a voice here, and the leaders, they will listen to me. And it may not go exactly how I want it to go, but they do care about my input, and they'll listen to me.
People want to be seen and heard. People want space. You know, people need space to feel seen and
For
heard.
sure.
You led with help me understand. And I think that is just that nails it. You know, that it's safe, it opens it up to like I don't think we're on the same page. Share your perspective with me. I love that. Help me understand. I really do. Let's pivot to parenting a little bit. What's it like being a father? What's it like raising kids? How has it changed? How has the county changed like since you were a child? Um, yeah, what's that like?
Well, parenting for me has been a huge blessing. It's been amazing. Four kids. We now have a grandchild, which is kind of
Ooh.
crazy. People say you're not old enough to have a grandkid. And I'm like, yes, thank you very much. I appreciate that. The nurse in the hallway at the hospital thought I was the dad's, and I wear that badge. Where I'm very, very. I will always carry that. Um, but yeah, we have a grandbaby. She's almost 3 months now. Gosh. Um, but yeah, parenting is tough. It's hard work, and so my oldest now is what, 23, and we have an 11-year-old. So um, it's when you're in the thick of it. When my kids are younger, I thought, man, this is gonna last forever, and then it's so hard, and then it changes, and now it's like, wow, that was so fast, and I miss the little kids pitter patting around. um but it's an amazing journey. I think God uses parenting to change, because you learn how to kind of dial yourself and put someone else ahead of you. And we human beings don't do that well. We want to put ourselves number one. So I think that's just a great way that God kind of makes us better people, to have to look after younger people and raise them. I'm grateful to have had awesome parents. So I said that earlier. I had amazing parents who um, loved me well. They had a solid marriage, and they set a great example for me on following God, serving their community. Um, you know, I could talk for hours about my parents. They were awesome. Um, and and as a parent, you realize, like, they made it look easy. It's not as easy as it looked. um and so we all make our own mistakes, and we have challenges as far as raising kids, but it's a beautiful journey, and it's hard. But I don't know if there's anything more rewarding than being a parent. In our community, there's challenges for parents. I mean, there's challenges. um, we have now, our kids have these personal devices that can get them in trouble. And I think that one thing that's important to me is protecting our kids. Um, and so, just like I would have some boundaries with my kids and their devices, I think it's good to promote safety and just I don't know, having awareness in the community of the dangers that are with these devices and the internet, and so child predators. I I want to be sure that that is something that the sheriff's department and our community does not put up with at all. There are predators out there. There's dangers through the internet, and so parenting is hard enough without those kinds of extraneous challenges and dangers. And so I would love to work with law enforcement and parents who care, to make sure that our kids are protected. And that can take a lot of different forms. I don't want to get into the weeds with that, but um, that just added a whole another dimension of challenge for parenting these days. Um, but yeah, parental involvement is key. It's crucial. Um, I think we can't rely on the school system or a church or a boys and girls club to raise our kids. That's the parents' job. And then if parents need help, we come alongside them, especially single parents. I've known a lot of single parents who, it's a hard thing. And so whatever resources our community can provide to help our single parents. It's hard financially. It's hard just the logistically of getting kids where they need to be, and keeping them involved in things like sports. And so, yeah, I'm glad you bring that up, because parenting is a huge thing. Family is a big thing to me. Being there to promote family, promote, um, you know, keeping the family unit strong. That's like the foundation of our society, is a strong family. And unfortunately, there's so many broken families now, and people who need help and assistance. So however we can assist and empower our families, I'm all for it. I want to help them.
What's a lesson that your children have taught you over the years about listening, and how does that relate to this role that you're running for today?
Yeah. Um, I've, gosh, they've taught me so many lessons. Being a parent has been the wildest ride of my life. Um, my kids have taught me, maybe not telling me, but just in raising them and learning and making mistakes, is, um, I have to be quick to say I'm sorry. And when I do that with my kids, when I apologize to my kids and I say, "Your dad was wrong. I got that one wrong. Please forgive me." That can be a powerful lesson. And I think it has been in the past, where I've had to humble myself to Chloe or Isaac or Griffin or Lilia and say, "Hey, I am sorry about that. I did the wrong thing there, or I should have done it this way," or, and so there's probably more instances that one time I got angry. I was angry over something, and I kicked a little play guitar. The little play guitars that you can never get them in tune. I play guitar, so like playing one of those is like fingernails on a chalkboard. But I got mad, and one of those was on the floor, and I kicked it and I broke it. And one of my lesser fine moments in my life, and I had to I had to go around to several stores and find a new one and bring one back and say, "Kids, your dad lost his temper, and I'm very sorry about that, and please forgive me." And I'm proud to say I've never kicked another guitar, but I think that's been a powerful thing, is just to show my kids that I'm human. Um, I believe they look up to me, but I think, I've wanted them to see that I'm not perfect. Of course, they know that, but humbling myself and saying when I'm wrong, I think is a powerful message to them, and it shows them that there's value in that, in humbling yourself and asking for forgiveness.
Huge, huge. I mean, you are a soccer player. I got to cut the man a break. He's a soccer player. Um, if I called
That's
up
right.
If I called Griffin right now, what would he say Jon Brown's superpower is?
Oh man, Griffin, he's my soccer player. He might think about soccer, but I gosh, I can tell you what I hope he would say. I hope that he would say is that my dad truly loves his family, and he loves God, and loves his family. Um, and to me, there's no better compliment coming from your kids if they believe that you love God and you love your family well. And so superpower, I don't know. I don't know that I have any of those at all, really.
You're humble. You're humble. You're humble. Um, let's pivot. We're gonna wrap up here in just a few minutes so you can make it over to your event on time. We haven't really got into a whole lot of the issues. I have one question that kind of like ties into everything that we've talked about right now. We've hit on like the people that you have looked up to and your role models, and like the family unit and your leadership styles. One of the things that you hear so much about relates to like many of the issues, but one of the things that you hear so much about is affordability. And affordability to me, as just like a working class member of Jackson County, it's over the last like 2 or 3 years, it's gotten to the point where it's like feeling like a buzzword and nobody's really doing much. It just feels like a buzzword. So
Mhm.
how do we begin to figure out solutions to some of the affordability, whether it's like housing, healthcare, um, working class, livable wage jobs, all of the above? Like, how do we just begin to like turn the tide just a little bit and just start having like real conversations instead of these buzzwords that just doesn't really seem to go anywhere.
Yeah. Yeah, affordability has become that big word of the last few months for sure.
Mhm.
And it's hard for people. I mean, the cost of living just keeps going up. In the grocery store, you go in there and you come out with 3 bags and it's $80, and thankfully gas prices are down a little bit right now. But yeah, housing, housing, childcare, the cost of insurance. It seems like my car insurance goes up every time I go to pay. And so the the costs just keep going up. The value of the dollar keeps going down. That's another thing about it is this, the debasement of the dollar and the what's happening here with our economy, and that's another conversation. But um, I don't want to bring. I don't want to, you know, yeah, like you said, kind of say all the buzzwords and say, oh yeah, we can come together and fix this with some special formula. It's not an easy fix, and I was able to get a picture into kind of some of the challenges, locally with being on the town board. With we're trying to come up with money to replace the fire truck. We're trying to come up with money to upgrade our police equipment and pave the streets and do all these things. And money's so tight on the town level, and we're trying to figure out how to fix the slope that failed, and reaching out to um, government offices to try to get funds, FEMA money, federal money, state funding, and so I think that I think that addressing affordability on our level, on the working people level, is very multifaceted. Uh, we've got to think creatively. We've got to kind of view some of these challenges as opportunities, like the 107 project. I would love to see more businesses and things that people want to see in our area come. And I know there's different schools of thought on that. Some people don't like the big, the chain restaurants and things like that. But we do need development, and we need to develop responsibly. We don't want to bulldoze all of our beautiful views, but we also have to have some progress, and we have to have businesses come in, and so I've got some thoughts on how to develop like the new, I say new 107 corridor, but ways to stimulate some new business growth. We're talking with some developers about multi use type buildings where maybe there's some retail and then some residential, because we have very little buildable space. So housing is there's a shortage. There's not enough. Then it's too expensive, and that's for a lot of reasons. And I don't know that we have the time here to talk about all the things we can do and maybe help with that, but or if there is any quick fix. There's not a quick fix. I was able to actually sit down with our congressman a while back, and he said, "What's the biggest challenge in Jackson County right now?" And I said, I feel like it's housing. There's not enough. It's unaffordable, and people are hurting. People, I did home health therapy for a while, and I got to go into homes, and I got to see how people are choosing to pay either for their medications or their groceries or their power bill, or and or to fix their roof, and so it's a real problem. I want to bring people together to try to figure out ways to, in our realm, on a county level, to be able to address some of those things. I as a commissioner, I'm probably not going to have the ability to go get the gas prices lower and the egg prices lower as much as I wish I could. But how can we address the needs of the people in our community right now? And things like the community table, providing people a hot meal if they need it, promoting resources that are available through, say, the United Christian Ministries and Department on Aging, and lots of mountain projects. And the Southwest Commission has tons of resources. I got to be involved with them a little bit, and they're doing great work, by the way. Russ Harris and all those guys. But networking together and bringing those people together and saying, hey, these are the challenges. This is where people are hurting. People are having a hard time paying their power bill. How can we get more good jobs in here, and not necessarily, cause the taxpayer, a burden, in getting those things in. There's talk of this industrial park out on Skyline Drive they want to build, and I think it's going to cost over $5 million, and then which means maybe a tax increase. And so we have to ask ourselves, well, how many people are really going to benefit from that, and is it worth it to our community? And so really, my goal is to do my homework and looking into these things and talking to the right people, bringing people together, and saying, hey, how can we address these challenges? There's not a quick fix. I'm okay saying that. I wish there was. I wish there was a formula we could just roll it out and color by number, and it all looks beautiful. But I do believe that we can come up with solutions, and with teamwork, with bringing people together, find that common ground. And so I'm very optimistic. I approach these challenges in an optimistic manner. I believe in people. I believe in freedom. I believe in bringing people together to tackle issues and problems together. I think that it can be done, but there's no easy way forward. I think that we got some big challenges, and it's going to take some hard work and just coming together and putting differences aside and working together, working hard at it, and having unity on it.
Yeah, unity. One man does not have the answer. One board doesn't have the answer, but collectively as a community, we can fix it. Yo, collectively as a community, we
That
can
was my
fix it.
wife.
I know. I said,
Yeah.
hey. All right, that's it. I'll let you wrap up. One last question, then we'll call it. You gotta run over and see the homies.
Oh yeah, I gotta go.
Why should an unaffiliated voter vote in the GOP primary on March 3rd?
Well, I think everyone should vote. I think that's our civic duty, and to inform yourself as much as you can on the candidates. I discourage people from just voting along a party line. I don't do that. I'm a registered Republican, but I often vote for Democrats here and there because I believe in their character. I believe in their work ethic, and their heart to serve the community. Um, uh, you know, Voting is your one thing that you can do. A lot of people sit back and say, "I can't believe they're doing this or that," and that's the the power of the people. That's We have a freedom that most people in this world, I think, are jealous of. They would love to be able to have a vote, to be able to have a say in how their government operates. So I would say get out there and make your voice heard. Unaffiliated. I used to be unaffiliated until not too long ago. I I do like the ability to, you can pull a Republican or a Democrat ticket if you like or the other. If you are unaffiliated, I would ask you pull a Republican ticket. I would I would appreciate the opportunity to serve. I've enjoyed serving in municipal government. I've and really need for fair that listens to. I would say that if you want someone like that to serve as commissioner chairman, pull the Republican ticket and vote for me. There's my website. Yeah, check that out. You can read about some of my beliefs and thoughts on government. I don't go real deep into policy on that. It's more about just who I am as a person. But if anyone would like to reach out to me and find out more about policy, and if you want, questions about what I think about the library, we didn't get into that. I love our library, and I want to see us keep it open and viable, and all that. So we could talk about that. If people want to email me or reach out and talk about that, or whatever issue. Yeah, thank you for the time, Steve. This was great.
Thank you for the time. Listen, after you went on March 3rd, I want to have you back before the November election and really get into the issues. That's why I want to make this personal, and we'll get into the issues after you win. You know what I mean?
Absolutely. Yeah.
Jon Brown,
I can't wait. I hope I have that opportunity.
It's been an honor to have you. I hope you guys have a successful event today. If anybody in the Silva area wants to get to know the candidates, you can go down and meet all of the commissioner candidates. They got multiple chair candidates, and we have a sheriff race that we didn't even talk about. So get down to the library at 12:30 and get to know these guys. All right. Jon Brown, let them know I'm safe. Let them know to hit me up. They can come on. Everything's cool. We're cool over here. Okay.
I will. I will, Steve. I got you back.
All right, bro. Thank you so much. You're a good man. I appreciate your time.
Thank you, sir. God bless you, man.
You too. All right, y'all. We got a busy day, so I will be back in about 45 minutes with Marsha. Thank y'all for tuning in. I appreciate y'all.